All right, good morning. This is a VirtualPBX-admin training. Just getting a slightly early start just to make sure things are working properly here. The training lasts about an hour and a half to about an hour and 45 minutes. If you're not able to stay for the whole thing, completely understand. We do record these trainings and they're stored up here on our YouTube channel. So you can always come back later to finish watch the training you were in or just rewatch the whole thing. Obviously, there are links, so then you could share them with other staff members that you're going to have as admins on your Dash account. It's 10 o'clock, so let's go ahead and get started. So on the screen here, we have our Dash login page, which is at dash.virtualpbx.com. You can also get there from the virtualpbx.com website. You should see a blue bar going across the top of the web page, and there's a link there for Dash login as well as the support pages. Also, if you click on support, there's another link on that page to get you back to the Dash login page. And to log into Dash, we need your email address, right? This will be the email address you use to sign up with us. We need your password, which should have been emailed to you, and then your account name, which is typically your company name. If for some reason you don't have that or forgot your password, over here to the bottom right, just above the sign-in bar, we have a forgot your info link. You can click on that. And we still need your email address. And then we need one of these two pieces of information here. So either we need the account name, right, the company name, or we need a phone number on the account, right, a phone number that some people dial into. So email address and then one of these two, right? You click on reset password, you'll get an email with a link to get you logged in, and that allows you to change your password. Once you do that, the system will log you out of the system and put you back here. And that's so you have a repetition there of your new password, but it also gives you a chance to click on the Remember Me box. And then you would click Sign In. Now I'm using a test account that I've been logged into several times, so I start off here on the dashboard. Now, if it's your first time logging into your account, you're actually taken to your account page, which you can always get to by clicking on your name here at the top. And here you start off on your user page. You can see your email address. You can change your password here. Right? Just click Edit and change your password. You can also change your time and date format. Now, as an admin, you also have this account level settings. The main thing that's changed is typically the account time zone. If you choose to change the account name, we ask that you let our billing team know because there are some other things they need to change on their side. Additionally, on your accounts, you'll have another section here for billing information, for things like being able to see previous invoices, see your account plan. You can update who your billing contact information is, and you can also update your credit card on file. When you're done here, you just want to click on the close box and you'll be taken here back to your dashboard. Now at the top, again, you have your name. Always can click on that to get back to those previous pages we were just looking at. Many of you will have a D&D toggle right to the right of your name, right, for Do Not Disturb. It's typically black with a light gray outline. If you click on it, it will toggle it to the right and have a white dot letting you know it's active, meaning calls to your user are going to go right to voicemail, right? If you happen to, and other calls like from groups or whatnot won't be offered to you. The reason I don't have the Do Not Disturb toggle is because my user is in an ACD queue, and once you're marked as an agent in a queue, the system removes the D&D toggle because D&D and queues don't work well together. You have a little question mark icon here. Right? And then you've got Chat with Us. This opens up a chat window to talk to our support team. You have Learn More, which will open up a new tab and take you to the support pages on our website. The online store opens up a new tab, takes you to store.virtualpbx.com. where you can order things like a physical VoIP phone, a router, etc. I have a blank spot here, but you could also, this could be populated once you add a web phone to your user. Right? Web phone makes use of a web browser, specifically Chrome or Firefox, on a computer to make and receive calls. Right, here we got the hamburger icon or menu icon, right? 3 horizontal lines. And we're on the dashboard here. And then these are other components of Dash that we will get to. But most of our time will be on the dashboard. And then we have the little logout icon here. Right here in the middle, we have our total users. These are people who make and receive calls on your account. If you're on a per user plan, right, adding a user would increase your bill, removing a user would decrease your bill. Then we have total devices. I have 36, and then a breakdown. So Dash, again, was designed from the ground up to work with VoIP, right? VoIP stands for Voice over Internet Protocol. Simple explanation, use your internet connection to make and receive calls. That's all VoIP really is. So first item here is a soft phone, and I have 15 of them. Now, soft phone means it's a software application that acts as a phone, thus needing your internet connection to make and receive calls. Soft phone will typically be on a computer. These days, it can also be on a cell phone because they're basically mini computers, as well as tablets. The soft phone will, this label of soft phone will include the VirtualPBX soft phone app, as well as third-party soft phone applications, right? A soft phone application from some other company. Then we have another item here, web phone, which we just talked about. Web phone is technically a type of soft phone, but it was a later development. So it has its own section here. Then we have cell phone, pretty self-explanatory. And then we have SIP phone. SIP phone is a physical VoIP phone, right? It's a phone that sits on your desk. You could literally go to Amazon or a Best Buy or what have you and buy one, bring it home, and plug it in. There are other kinds of VoIP phones that are physical products. SIP is just one subtype of it that is supported by us. Down here, I've got unregistered devices 2. That means 2 of my physical VoIP phones are not registered, meaning we can't send calls to it. Right, total numbers 19. So your plan includes anywhere from 2 to 15 phone numbers as part of your monthly plan price, typically speaking. So I'm obviously a bit over that 15, which means I'm going to be paying an overage per phone number per month. For specific details on your accounts, you would want to talk to our account services team. They can let you know how many numbers are included on your plan, as well as what the overage would be if you go over it. And then I have a breakdown here first of assigned numbers and spare numbers. An assigned number means I'm using it, right? It rings to somebody, or it's one of my main numbers, or it's my fax box number, or conference number, right? Basically, someone can dial it and get to a staff member, a voicemail box, or send a fax, or a conference, right? A spare number, it's on my account, so it still counts towards my allotment, but I'm not currently using it. So for instance, if I had a special promotion for Thanksgiving, right, for Black Friday, for that initial holiday sales weekend, and now that that weekend is over, I'm like, I don't want calls related to that specific promotion. I can unassign the number, so that way when people call it, they just get a busy tone, right? It's not service essentially. Now that could be, I could use it again later, right, and make it an active number, or I just haven't decided if I want to get rid of it or not completely. All right, the other breakdown here, I have USDID and US toll-free. The US toll-free is actually US Canada toll-free, right? It's an 800 number, 888 all the way down to 833 currently. USDID, that just means a US local number, right? So if you want a phone number, say in Orlando, Florida, it would count as a USDID number. You can have a number in Elmira, New York, Denver, Colorado, etc. You can have international phone numbers on your account. If you're interested in acquiring an international number, you're going to want to email our porting team. That's PORTING at virtualpbx.com. They'll need to know the city and country that you're interested in. If there's additional requirements, they will let you know what those requirements are. Those are denoted by the countries and their telecommunications regulatory body. All right, conference bridges right here. I have 4. That means I've enabled the ability to host or moderate a conference on 4 of my users. Right, I'm not able to do that until after I've assigned a conference number up here. And speaking of over here, up here at the top right, up here, these first 3 numbers, these are my main company numbers. These numbers all act the same way, right? So people can call any of these 3 numbers. They're going to end up at the same spot, and they're going to hear the same main greeting. And I can even add more or reduce if I want to. Conference number, you can have multiple conference numbers if you want. No matter what, though, every person who's joining a conference needs to dial a conference room number, and they'll enter in the specific enter the specific conference room number they're joining, and then the PIN number. Fax box number, this enables accepting inbound faxes on your account, and thus this phone number is your fax number, and you can only have the one on the account, at least as a main fax box number. The company directory, this downloads a text file, so you can see your users and their extensions. The soft phone directory, this is for use with the VirtualPBX desktop soft phone application. You would download this file, upload it to the VirtualPBX desktop soft phone, and you'll be able to see the status of your other users who are using the VirtualPBX soft phone, right? So I could look at my contact list and see my coworkers, and I can see, oh, my coworker Mike is on a call, so I can't call him right now to talk about a shared customer issue that we're working on. All right. Whereas my boss, he can see I'm not on a call, so oh, I need to talk to you, right? And call me directly, and then we can speak. You have a store discount code. So just for being a Dash customer, you get a discount on our web store, right? The store.virtualpbx.com. And then lastly, you have the account realm. This is specific to each account, and it's used for a couple different things. First, it's used to program a third-party application or device, right? So if you're using a soft phone from, say, Counterpath, you would use the realm information as part of the process to get that working with us. Likewise, if you had a VoIP phone that didn't show up under the auto provision list, you would use the realm for that to program that. And the other thing it's used for is to fax out. So on Dash, sending a fax out is via email, right? So you create an email like you normally would to email your cousin Bob. But in the to field of that email, right, instead of Bob's email address, you put the plus sign, the number 1, area code and phone number you're faxing to, the @ symbol, and then your account realm. And then you attach a PDF or TIFF file and click send. 1 attachment per email. You will get an email confirmation whether it goes through or not. That confirmation can take some time. And you definitely don't want to send very large files. The largest file I've sent out is 7 megabytes, and it took me over an hour to get that confirmation email. Right, up here at the top, you got the caller ID. This is your main company caller ID. You can, this is a pull down, which unfortunately my streaming software does not like, but you can choose any of your main numbers, right? But you're selecting 1 as the default for the outbound caller ID for all of your VoIP phones. Then you've got the company caller ID name. This is 15 characters, including spaces and special characters that you would then input in this field. And then you have the company emergency information, or E911. You just put an address associated with this phone number. Every phone number can have a different address associated with it, and every VoIP device, you can select which address is associated with it for E911 purposes. And then you would click on Save Changes. Now, a couple things about the company caller ID name, right? Once you click on Save Changes, this gets transmitted out to the other carriers who support CNAME. It takes them about 3 business days to update all the servers. It can take a little less than that, but not by a whole lot. Additionally, CNAM, right? This is what we can control, right? We can control what we send out. What is displayed on the other end of the call, that's up to that, the receiving device and their network. There are some carriers that do not support CNAM, and calls to cell phones may not show CNAM information unless the user of that cell phone may have, like AT&T, I have to pay extra if I want CNAM information to show up for every call. I'm not willing to pay that personally, so I don't always get the CNAM information. And the cell phone providers have their own lists of like who's a spam risk and telemarketer. And as a company, you can go to their specific sites to whitelist your company name. So then you have a better chance of it showing up on calls to cell phones. Right, hold music. Hold music on Dash is defined as after a call has come to a user, and then that user has pressed hold on their VoIP phone. That's when hold music will play. And on Dash, you can upload your own files. You would just click on upload here and find the file on your computer. Dash will play back .mp3, .ogg, and .wav files. You want to make sure they're recorded in mono, not in stereo, and that they're under 1 megabyte in size. You click the little up arrow icon here, and then once it finishes uploading, you would click Save Changes. All right, hours is actually part of main number, so we'll just click on main number and work all our way down. So main company numbers, again, these are your 3 main numbers. They're all going to the same place. Now, any place you can add a phone number, you're typically going to have the option here for add from spare numbers. Right? So if you have an extra number, you can add it there, or you can buy a new number. Now, let's say you only have the 1 number and your account includes up to 15. Buying a number is not going to cause a charge to show up on your invoice or charge your credit card. That's just how the system terminology used to add a number to the account. Right, so now you have an option here for local or toll-free. We'll start with toll-free because that's pretty easy. Pick the toll-free prefix you want to work with, then click on search. And then the system is looking for available numbers with that prefix. You find a number that you like, shows up here. You have an option to delete it. You can add multiple if you want. And then you can click on Buy Numbers. And the system is just verifying that the number was there and then adding it to my account. For local numbers, I click here. You need to know the area code. Now, there are times where you will search for an area code and it will return this message. That means most likely that this area code is exhausted. Right? So in this case, 310, that's the Los Angeles area code, is actually the original one. So it's been exhausted for a while. In this instance, you would then want to search for either an overlay or nearby area code. So I could do 424, for example. And now I see that there are plenty, and then I can add a number and click Buy Numbers. All right. You notice a little gear icon next to each of the numbers. This is where you can adjust the caller ID. So you can give each phone number its own outbound caller ID name information, as well as the ability to turn on the ability for your staff members to see the inbound CNAM information of their callers. You have the E911. So again, each phone number can have its own E911 information. And then prepend. This is for your VoIP phone users. You can add additional text that shows up on your VoIP phone's displays. Right, so call comes in on this phone number, I can put in, all right, Exmo sale, I put save changes. All right, so now when anyone calls this 866 number, gets to one of my VoIP phone users, it will show up on their VoIP phone display as Xmas sale, and then the phone number of the person calling in. Right. So now my staff member knows, oh, this is about the sale. Now, if you don't want to use a number as a main number, right, you would just click unassign. Like so. Now, the numbers are still on my account, right? Now they're just a spare number. So I can either assign them someplace else or remove them when I get to the spare numbers page, which we'll get to later. All right, office hours strategy. By default, new accounts start off at 24-hour open office. If you choose to be custom office hours, then for each day of the week you're open, you put a check mark. And then you choose your hours of operation in these boxes here to the right in 24-hour or military time. You do have the option to be closed for lunch. If you put a check mark there, then you just enter in your lunchtime hours. And then you would click on Save Changes. Then we have office holidays. So first, if you have to decide if you're closed for holidays. Right, you put a check mark here. And then once you go over to the right, you have the option to add a holiday. You have single day, date range, and advanced. Oops, did not mean to do that. All right, single day is like Halloween, right? You give it a name, you select the month and the date. All right, date range, like I have down here for Xmas break. Again, give it a name, give it a start date and an end date. Now notice that there's no year indicator here. So you want to avoid a date range that includes New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. Because usually that doesn't cause a problem, but we have had times where it's put some customers in after hours mode all the time. All right, and then the advanced is like this retreat example here, where again, I gave it a name, and then I said, right, just basically I have it set up here. Now for the third Friday in May, right, we're on holiday, right? It's company picnic day. Right, these pull downs, it's again, you choose the month, you choose 1st through 5th as well as last, and then day of the week. And then you would click on Save Changes. All right, next up we have incoming call handling. Now, notice I have subtabs, right? So I have open hours, I have lunch hours, I have after hours, and I have holidays, but the options are basically the same. So we'll start here. The first option here is to the virtual receptionist. When I click on the virtual receptionist, it opens up this box here. On my left, I have the main menu. Right? These are what people press on their phones to navigate through my phone system. Then I click on Add Route if I want to give them additional options. Again, unfortunately, the pull downs don't quite work here, but you have 0 through 9, as well as the star key and the default action, which is what the default that it selects when you add a new one. And then the pull down, the second pull down is where you want to send the calls. So if you click on this, right, you can always go to the smart directory, right, dial by name directory. You can select a specific person that a menu option goes to. Scroll down. You can send it to a call queue. This means you're making use of ACD queues. You can send it to a specific phone, right, specific device. The downside is if that phone doesn't have a voicemail attached to it, then right, either the call keeps going until the person, basically the call keeps going until the inbound caller hangs up, which might be annoying for your customers. You can select a media file. This is just a greeting. So like hours of operation or directions. Once that greeting file ends, the call ends. Groups. This is ring groups, the departments, right? So you can send it to a support team, a billing team, sales team, etc. Advanced call flows. This is if you're making use of either DISA, which is allows you to make an outbound call from your cell phone. Basically, you call in to log in. Or, and this other one here is for a submenu option, right? So you're giving your customers an option, press 1 for English, 2 for Spanish, and then they get a second greeting with options to the relevant language. And then finally, an option to go to a voicemail. On the right, we have your greeting options. First up is text-to-speech. You can type in up to 250 characters, maybe a little more, not words, characters. When you click Update and then Save and Save Changes, it creates the greeting. It's in a computerized robotic voice. This is good if you're a startup, right? Or you've never used a PBX system before, or you're just not sure how calls are going to flow in yet, right? This allows you to create greetings and test them out. One thing to keep in mind is every time you click Update, Save and Change, Save and then Save Changes for the text-to-speech greeting, the system reuses the file name, right? So main open hours menu TTS, right, is what it uses for every text-to-speech greeting for my main open hours, right? So if I come here and I change this, right, I add additional text, right, like da 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 da, right? Doesn't matter what I add, right? Once I click Update, Save, and Save Changes, now I have a second file saying main open menu TTS. So if you're using text-to-speech greetings, after you create one, I recommend going over to the Greetings tab, which we'll be getting to shortly, and find that file and change the name, right? So it's something recognizable so you can flip back to it if you need to. You can upload your own file. And you would choose the file on your computer, .wav, .mp3, .ogg, recorded in mono under 1 megabyte. You can choose from existing files. And you can see here I have that main open hours menu TTS. Right? Unfortunately, the pull down is probably mess up, but I have seen customers with like 10 of these, and they don't know which one is which. You can record it over the phone. Now, the system says pick up a phone registered on this account. What that means is a VoIP phone that's on the account. Now, if you don't want to do that, or you have that friend with that great radio voice, then you want to make sure under your settings that allow outside recording is turned on. Then you can call in from any phone. Now, when you do so, you still need the PIN. This PIN number is specific to this time of day, right? This is our open hours, so that means it only works during my open hours, right? So if my open hours ends at 5 o'clock, I call in at 6 p.m. to try to change my open hours, this PIN number won't work because I'm no longer in open hours. If you've just signed up, right, or it's you don't have a greeting in place, then when you call in that first time, the system tells you that there's no greeting for this menu and then prompts you for the PIN number. If you already have a greeting in place, when you hear your main greeting play, you can enter the PIN number, and then the system will walk you through recording a greeting over the phone. One thing to know in that particular situation, right, you already have a greeting in place. When you record it over the phone, you are changing the existing greeting, right? So the greeting you heard is going to change to whatever you record it to, right? It overwrites the existing file. And then professional recording services, when you click order, this will take you to a new website, a new tab, where you can order a greeting from Snap Recordings. They have like 100 voice actors and actresses to choose from, different versions of English, as well as French and Spanish. You can do multilingual greetings, and they can also do hold treatment, right? A mix of a music file and a script. They handle their own billing, and they deliver to you via email, and then you would just upload the file. All right, next up we have settings. So first is number of retries on missed dial. Typically 1 or 2 is plenty, but this is how many times the inbound caller can hit an invalid option. Right? So call comes in and the person presses 3, right? Not a valid option. So then the system says invalid entry, it'll play the greeting again. Let's say they press 5, still an invalid entry. Now, since they only get their 1 retry, then, which was 5, which is again wrong, the system will then send them to the default action, right? The Smart PBX directory. Now, if I remove the default action after that second attempt, right, the first retry, Now the system will end the call because there's no default action and they didn't enter a valid option. All right, dialing timeout. This is how much time the system waits after it hears a button press before it assumes the caller is done. Right, so in that sample where the person called in and pressed 3, the system's going to wait for a count of 10 and they go, oh, you meant 3, not a valid option. Right, and then it'll play the greeting again. For most people, I said you want to put this at 5 or less. All right, allow outside recording. By default, it's off, right? But you would turn it on if you want to record a greeting, your main greeting, over a cell phone or a landline. Right. Then allow dialing extensions. This is typically on, so that way when the inbound caller comes here, they can enter the extension number if they know it. Right. If you turn this off, then they only have these menu options. They cannot, I mean, they can enter the extension number, but it's not going to go anywhere, and it's going to count as one of their initial try or their retry. And then you have this one here, the suppress playing of the invalid entry. So default is off. Basically, that means when someone enters in a wrong entry menu option, the system tells them. Additionally, when it gets to the last attempt, right, the system says invalid. We were not able to hear your entries, and says goodbye. Now, if you don't want that message to play, then you would turn this on. Now, any changes you make to your main menu or your greeting or your settings, you need to click Save here. And then back here on the incoming call handling, you need to click Save Changes here. All right. Second option here, this is your live operator answer. This is a pull down. You can select users, devices, queues. You can also send it to a media file. I don't recommend that, just because after it gets offered here, it goes to your virtual receptionist. So your inbound caller will hear 2 greetings, and that can be confusing to people. And then you can send it to groups or one of your advanced call flows. So we can select my front desk group. So basically, call comes in, it's offering to all my members of my group. If for some reason none of them are able to answer, then it goes to the virtual receptionist. Now, this is my lunch receptionist. So I would click on a default route, and I would, could give some additional options if I wanted to. I would have a different greeting play, right? Because it's my lunchtime versus my open hours, and adjust these settings. Then I would click Save and Save Changes. Holidays, you can use something like this here. Call comes in and not having it go straight to voicemail. Right, now this is a pull down, so I can select users, groups, device, a media file, a queue, etc. And this pull down, I can send it to any voicemail box on the account. Now, if your account has multiple auto attendants, you have the option here as well. You can send calls to a secondary attendant if you wish to. Although typically, in that case, you would, if it's a permanent change, you would probably choose, mimic the secondary attendant as your virtual receptionist here. So that way you have the most options. All right, main conference number. Again, you can add multiple conference numbers if you wish. Right, once you add a conference number here, then you can enable the conference bridge feature on a user. You got the custom greeting, which is a text-to-speech greeting. Right, if you enable it, you type in what you want the system to say, and you click on Save. If I disable this and click Save, if you call into this number, the system will still say, "Welcome to the conference. Please enter the conference room number," right, and then ask you for the PIN number. The main fax box number, you can have one main fax box number. Right? If you unassign it, you can add a different number if you want. If you edit the fax box, you have 2 fields. The first one is for the inbound notifications. Right? Basically, when a fax comes in, who's getting notified? In this case, it's going to Peter. So Peter would get an email saying, hey, you have a new fax. Here's the number it came from. Here's a PDF attachment. You can double click on it and look at the PDF. Now, if someone calls my main fax box number, right, here's a fax tone and hangs up, Peter would still get an email saying that there was a failed inbound fax attempt. And then we have the other box here, email permissions. This is for outbound faxing. You can put an email address here, or you can put your company domain. The advantage of putting your company domain is that means any of your staff members can send a fax out via email. They don't have to be a user on your Dash account. All right, auto attendance. This is a plan-specific feature, meaning it's on some plans and not all. Couple use cases. The first I already mentioned is submenuing, right? One for English, two for Spanish. You would then have an English and Spanish option here. They would have their own greetings and their own menu options. The other use case is if you have multiple businesses and each business has its own phone number and own main greeting. Right? To add an attendant, you click Add Attendant. You give it a name and an extension number. Then you would click on Create Attendant. Once you've created it, if you click on the name, you have this first option here, unavailable in main menu. This means it's a standalone attendant, i.e. likely its own business. Right? If I flip it to be available in main menu, that means it's a sub-menu option, right? So it can show up under my virtual receptionist or even under another auto attendant. Right? Attendants can have their own phone numbers, right? You have 5 numbers, and you can add from spare. So this could have, like push walk here, I could have it have 5 phone numbers if I wanted it to. Again, you can add extension numbers, so you can have multiple extension numbers go to a particular attendant as well as unassign it afterwards. The system wants it to have an extension number. So if you want to change the extension number, you would want to, what I say is add the new extension number first. You see a little icon letting you know there's 2 extensions. Right, and then unassign the other extension. All right, then you got the little wrench icon here under settings. And you see here have calls come into the virtual receptionist. I have open hours, lunch hours, after hours, and holidays. Right, these hours or in holiday schedule follow what we already set up under the main number. Right, so your multiple businesses would have to have the same hours of operation. You click here on the virtual receptionist. Again, you select the menu options, you select the greeting or create a greeting, as well as the settings, save, and save changes. All right, devices. Green means it's registered, meaning we can send a call to it, right, like this one here. Red means it's not registered, i.e. we can't send calls to it. If you ever have a black device, so if we do this to Mike's or MH, then it will turn black, and that means you just disabled a device. Up here at the top, that's where you would add new devices. First up is SIP phone, right? That's that physical VoIP phone, sits on someone's desk. These manufacturers have models that have supported auto-provisionable devices. If you click on them, you will see the specific models that are supported. Right? Some have a bunch, some not so many. No matter what, though, you would find the model, and then here you would click on it, you'd give it a name, right? Charlie's phone. And then the MAC address. The MAC address is unique to each device. It will be a sticker on the back of the phone, or if the phone's plugged in under, typically it's like menu status or basic settings, there'll be a MAC heading, and that's this information. You'd want to enter it here. You then click on Create Device, and then under Users, you would add it to a user. Within the dashboard, That's all you need to do. However, you need to get into that phone's web user interface. That's typically finding the IP address and putting the IP address in the address bar of a browser on a computer that's on the same network. And you need to enter in a URL into the auto provision section of the phone's UI. For the specifics for each manufacturer, you want to go to our support pages, right? So virtualpbx.com, click on support, go to support guides. And then about a third of the way down on the right, you're looking for a document called auto provisioning phones. You can also do a search on our site for auto provisioning phones. That guide will have screenshots for each of these manufacturers, as well as the proper syntax for that URL, and in some cases, some additional settings to verify. Right? Basically, you enter that URL, you click save, then you tell the phone to auto provision. Right? The device will reboot a couple times because it's going to go out to the internet, grab its config file, reboot, typically 2 to 3 times is what I've seen. And hopefully after that it's done, it will show up as a green device on your account. A cell phone and landline are the same, essentially. You give it a name, right? Angela's phone. Then you put +1 area code and phone number, and then click on Create Device. Now, when Dash sends a call to a cell phone or a landline, here we'll go to this one here, even though I disabled it. If we go to Advanced and other options, this is a standard setup for a cell phone or a landline. So call comes in, we send it out to this device, right? You would pick up on your cell phone. You will immediately hear, this is a forwarded call, please press 1. When you press 1, you're telling the system, yes, you are there, and yes, you want to take this call. Right? And then connects the call to you. That doesn't work in every situation. For instance, if you actually set up a cell phone device, but it's actually going to, say, an automated answering service for your after-hours calls, right? Your automated answering service is not going to know when to press 1. Right, so the call won't properly connect. This will probably lead to some frustration. So what you would want to do is on Dash, again, click on the wrench icon, right? Click Advanced, select Options, and this top one here, Allow Use of Cell Phone's Voicemail. You want to put a check mark here, and then click Save Changes. So now when we send a call out to this phone number, right? As soon as we hear that pickup tone, we're connecting the call. We're not waiting for that one tone to come back to us, right? So great for going to an automated answering service. Maybe not so great if it's going to your personal cell phone, right? Because if it's going to your personal cell phone and you have this setting, if your cell phone voicemail picks up, we still treat that like a connected call. So the inbound caller ends up on your personal cell phone's voicemail. Some people want that, some people don't. That's a personal preference. The other thing that comes up is this one here, keep original caller ID. So say, for instance, customer Mary is calling in to the system, goes out to your cell phone. On your cell phone, you see customer Mary's phone number. You don't recognize it, and you're tired of hearing about extending your auto warranty. So you let the call to voicemail, right? Then maybe you're able to reconnect and make the sale, maybe not. So what you could do is uncheck this one here. All right, click on Save Changes. So now what would happen is when the call comes to you, your main company phone number shows up, not Mary's phone number. And what do I mean by main number? That would be, under the dashboard here, this caller ID, this 408 number, that's the number that would show up on your cell phone's display instead of customer Mary's phone number, right? So it lets you know it's a work call. All right, soft phone. There's a little warning message here about wireless VoIP technology. Please make sure you read that at least once. And then you give it a device name. And right here, this is a third-party soft phone setup. So you would copy the SIP username. You click on the SIP password box to see what the SIP password is, so then you can copy it. And then you have your account realm, right? Those 3 pieces of information are what you would need to program your third-party soft phone. whether that's an application from another company or it's because your VoIP phone didn't show up under that previous list. You then click on Create Device, add it to a user, and then program that application or device. We have some guides for third-party soft phones and devices, but not a lot, just because there's a ton of soft phones and devices out there. You can also add a web phone. You just give it a device name and create device. However, the web phone has its own login, or actually it doesn't have its own. It uses your dash login. So you have to assign it to a user to make it useful. So I normally just assign it on the user's page. All right, greetings. This is your greetings manager. Shows all your greetings on the account, whether they're your main greeting or a voicemail greeting or even hold music, right? This is essentially a media manager. All right, you can see the name of a file, the source, right? TTS, text to speech, right? Upload, and then recording means you recorded over the phone. You can download any of these files, so then you can listen to it on your computer. And then you can click on the little wrench icon here, and you can change the name or delete the greeting. Right? So for the main hours, open hours menu TTS, you definitely want to change these after you create them. At least say like main and the date, right? So that way you know what it is in case you need to revert back to it. Groups. This is shorthand for ring groups or hunt groups. Departments, essentially. These are an included feature. Up here at the top, you click Add Group. You give it a name and an extension number, and then you click and drag your staff members that you want to be in that group, and then click on Create Group. Okay, you can click on a name for any group. Oops. Right, so you can change the name, and then you have the group call attempts. This is how many times the inbound call was offered to your group members. There's little arrows here to the right. You can click up or down to increase the number of attempts. You can click on the members box. So here you can see your staff members. It looks like I got a user that was removed or deleted. So I would want to remove them from the group. Along the top here, I've got timestamps. And this last one here, you can edit. The default duration for a ring group is 120 seconds. But you can, again, I can edit this to say 60, for example. And then I can click distribute. So now it will ring in order. Now, if I don't like this order, I can click and drag people around and then click distribute again. So now David's at the top, right? It starts at him. Now these are sliders. So I could also set up a blast ringing setup or ring all setup. And do this. So now when a call comes in, it rings everybody until someone picks up. Now, some things to know about calls being offered to users in a group. It will ring all of their phones. Right, so if David has multiple phones on his user, right, his cell phone, he's got a soft phone, he's got a physical VoIP phone. Pardon me, had a little coughing fit there. Right, the call comes to him from a group, all of his devices ring until he picks up or until another colleague picks up. Right, there is a user feature called Follow Me, which as an admin you can set up so it rings his particular phones in order. The group call will ignore that completely. Likewise, or similarly, groups, you can take calls with cell phones, landlines, or VoIP devices. On ACD queues, which we'll be getting to later, you can only take calls via a VoIP device, right? Soft phone, web phone, physical VoIP phone. Now, let's say a call comes in, David's on a call helping a customer, and a second call comes in. If his device has call waiting, he will hear a call waiting beep until one of his colleagues picks up. Right? He would have to disable call waiting on his device to not hear that beep. Also down here, bottom left, this is where you would add additional users to a group. So like I can add, so I want to add these two people. And then if I click distribute, they'd be at the end of the line here. And then save changes. Groups have extension numbers, right? This is so people can transfer. You can add multiple extension numbers if you want. Groups can also have phone numbers, like I have down here under the training. Again, you can add from spare or buy new. One thing to know about a group that has a phone number, this phone number is available 24/7. It will not follow your hours of operation. And then we have group features. First up is ring back. If you click enabled, you can upload a media file, right? .wave, .mp3, .ogg recorded in mono. Now, this file replaces the sound of ringing, right? So when the inbound caller calls in, they, by default, will hear the ringing sound, right? Okay, I'm waiting for my call to connect. Now, you can replace that with a media file. However, since it's replacing the ringing sound, what the ringing sound is actually being piped back from the devices we're sending the call to. So if the first person, I have this group set to go in order. So if David's phone, for whatever reason, doesn't give the system back the ringing sound, the ringback file will not play because it replaces the ringing sound. And if there's nothing there, there's nothing to replace. That typically happens with like cell phones or landlines. With VoIP phones, that shouldn't happen. All right, next action, if you click enabled, if no one answers, what do you want to do with the call? And you have a pull down. Right, so you can send it back to your virtual receptionist. You can send it back to one of your other attendants. Now these attendants are like Spanish, that's available in main menu. That's why it shows up here, whereas Pooch Walk is not available in main menu. That's why it's not here. I can send it to one of my ACD queues. I can send it to a specific device. I can send it to another ring group. I can send it to another user. And then I can send it to a voicemail box. And then save changes. Allow call forward. If you enable this, that means you're allowing your users to make use of call forwarding, i.e. they're not at their normal desk phone. And then caller ID prepend. This is for your VoIP phone users. You can add additional text in front of the caller ID that shows up on their VoIP phones so they know what the call is about, right? So in this case, I have new business. So that would show up on any inbound call that comes into this group on my staff members' VoIP phones. All right, numbers. This shows your numbers on the account. All right, numbers in use. This is where they're going, basically. You have the little gear icon here, so you can update the caller ID, the CNAM, or the E911. Spare numbers, these are numbers you're not using. Now, if I want to remove numbers, I click on the box in front of them, and you see here the delete option showed up. It says, are you sure you want to do that? You click delete, and now they're removed from my account. All right, you can also buy numbers here, right? Local toll free, just like we saw earlier. You can also start the porting process here. And so porting is moving a phone number from one carrier to another, right? So say from AT&T to VirtualPBX, you would just need to give it a name, select US local or toll free, and click next. Now it wants you to upload a copy of your bill in PDF, right? And then you acknowledge that it's within 30 days. We'll ask you for the address associated with the phone number. actually will ask you for the numbers you're porting, as well as then the address on the bill, which should match what your, let's say, AT&T had on file for you. It will give you the option to download a blank letter of agency and then upload a completed and signed LOA. The LOA asks you for like company information and address. That should match what your current carrier has on file for you. So like what AT&T has on file. It does need to be signed, whether that's an actual, you printed it out and signed it and scanned it back in, or you have a digital signature file you placed in there. There's 4 checkboxes you need to check. Basically, the main gist of it is you need to keep both accounts active, among a couple other things. Then you click submit. The documents are uploaded. You should get an email right away letting you know that the submission went through. You should get a second email by the next business day from our porting team. That means a person actually looked at it and has submitted the port request, right? And then that email is going to include what to expect. If you get a different email, that usually means there's something came through wrong, like your LOA didn't have a signature, for example. Let's see what else. Porting toll-free numbers, typically in the 3 to 5 business day range. Local numbers, it averages about 2 to 3 weeks. It just depends on when the other carrier releases the number to us. If we get a rejection, it's not always very specific, meaning we'll get a rejection saying the address is wrong, right? Address mismatch. They won't tell us necessarily that the street number is wrong or the zip code is wrong. They'll just say address mismatch. We pass that information on to you so you can confirm with your current carrier what it should be. And then we can resubmit or adjust the port request. All right, users, these show your users on the account. The little blue suit icon means that's a system administrator, whereas the gray person is just your standard user. You click add user to add someone new to the account. We need their first and last name. And then the email address used for login needs to be unique for each user, right? So you can't reuse email addresses. Then you create a password for them. And then you give them an extension number, right? The system is suggesting 1007, but you can change it to whatever you want. By default, the system will create a voicemail box for the user. That voicemail box is intrinsically tied to the user. So like if I added a VoIP device to this user, they could then log into their voicemail box from their VoIP phone immediately. Right? Basically, just pick up the VoIP phone, hit star 98. The system will prompt them to enter in a PIN number, so they create their own PIN number, and then walk them through recording their voicemail greeting. All right, then we have the option to include in the user directory. You can change that at any time. Send emails to an alternate address. So by default, when this user gets a voicemail, the system will email them using the email address used for login details about their voicemail, as well as an attachment they can listen to. Right, this would also go, the email address used for login would also be what is used for password reset. If you choose send emails to an alternate address and then you need to put another email address here, all of those emails go to this other address, not the email address used for login. And then lastly here, send credentials to the user. I think that's pretty important, so I always check it. And then click on create user if you only need to add one person, create user and add another if you need to add multiple people. Once you've created a user, you can click on their name. So you can change their name if you need to. You can change their credentials, both their email address and their password. You also have the option here where you can resend them the password reset so that they can change the password themselves. Voicemail box PIN, you can set up a temporary PIN number, and you would need to do that for your cell phone or landline users. Again, for your VoIP phone users, they can just pick up their VoIP phone and dial star 98. Here's the option to send to an alternate address. And then here's the option to be in the user directory. This pull down allows you to change a user into an admin or an admin back to a user. Then we've got the time zone. It's a pull down, right? Just do a search for the city. Typically the easiest thing to do. This is the display language, English, French, German, or Russian. And that's how the dash pages will display to that user. Ringing timeout. This is how much time by default the system will try to send calls to a device on a user. 20 seconds is plenty of time for a landline or a VoIP device. However, to a cell phone, you're going to want to put this up to 45 seconds or even up to 60 seconds. All right. Basically, for how PBX system works, right? Call comes in, we send it out to the device on the user. When we're sending out to a landline, for example, right? Landline telecom goes, oh yeah, we know exactly where that is. Send the call here. Whereas when we send a call out to a cell phone, right? Call goes to the cell phone telecom. They go, hold up a second. You need to find them first, right? Pings cell phone towers, finds you, then sends a call through. That delay is why you would need to have a longer ring time for calls going to a cell phone than to a landline. Right. Users can have multiple extensions. Users can have their own phone numbers, and they can have multiple if you want them to. Just like in ring groups, this phone number is available 24/7. That's something to be aware of. And then you have the option here for devices, just like before, right? SIP phone, soft phone, etc. So you can add devices directly to a user. The thing here is for soft phone. Right now, sort of like on the devices page, it starts off showing you as a third-party soft phone. However, at the bottom, there's a little toggle that says use third-party application. You can click on that, where now it says use VirtualPBX application. Now, this here saying is that this user, Michael, he already has a soft phone associated with his email address. So the system's not going to allow me to create one for him now, because you can only have basically one soft phone per email address. So in that instance, it's getting cut off. Okay, so let's. Hold on a minute. I'm going to recreate that message that came up under Michael, under myself here. Right, so now I get this message here saying, hey, you already have an email address or soft phone with that email address. So you click on the username. So then you send it to an alternate address, and then you put in a different email address. So now I can come back to my soft phone or my devices and add a new soft phone. Click third party. Oh, wow, that one has a. I have apparently used a lot of soft phones. Sorry about this. Didn't realize I had so many soft phones associated with me. Gonna have to go through and clear some of those out. All right, so you give it a name after you say use VirtualPBX application, click on create device, and then you click on save changes. Once you click on save changes, the system emails out the credentials to the user as well as download links. Oops. Oh, I didn't click save changes earlier enough. All right. So create device, save changes. Then the user is emailed their login credentials for the softphone application, as well as download links, and then they can log in. You can also add a web phone directly to a user, which I find to be easiest to do. And then I need to click save changes at this point, which I did not do previously. And then once I log in, this will turn into a green device. All right, users have user features. Caller ID number, this only shows up for users with their own phone number. When you enable it, you select their phone number, click on save changes, and that phone number now becomes their outbound caller ID. So whenever Aaron here makes an outbound call, the 775 phone number would show up as his caller ID instead of the company default, which is a 408 number. Call forwarding. So your users can turn call forwarding on themselves. You don't need to do that for them. Right? They can do that via the user portal or feature codes on our VoIP phone. Failover mode is something you would need to set up. And what this is when, since the system can detect when a VoIP phone becomes unregistered, then and a call comes in at that time, the system will automatically forward to the phone number you indicate. Right? You select desk phone or mobile phone, you put +1 area code and phone number, and then save changes. Hot desking is a VoIP feature for an instance where you're in a shared office environment. You give it a hot desk ID. So if you use 4-digit extensions, I just say use people's extension numbers. And then you click on save changes. So Aaron comes into the office today. He sits down at desk number 7. He picks up the VoIP phone, enters his hot desk ID, and the system tells him calls will be sent to the device that he's sitting at. The rest of his workday, whether someone calls his extension number, or call comes into a group he's in or a queue he's in, right? His VoIP phone will ring that he's sitting at. End of his day, he picks up the VoIP phone, hits *12 to turn off hot desking. Right, next time he's in the office, let's say that's Friday, he sits down at desk number 22. It's like, all right, picks up the handset, *11, and now calls are coming to him at that desk. That's the purpose of hot desking. Voicemail box, again, was created when the user was created. Transcription, that's a plan-specific feature. Basically, the system listens to the voicemail and tries to type it out in the email notification. But by default, this system has voicemail to email enabled, and then it attaches the voicemail to that email. Now, your voicemail boxes can hold up to 100 messages. After that, the voicemail box is full and cannot accept more. So you might want this option here, which is to delete the messages after that notification is sent out. So that way you don't have to worry about a voicemail box becoming full. Users can have their own fax box if you want them to. This would be in addition to your main fax box. Now, this one is set up as an extension, right? You can also have a phone number, which is recommended. So for Aaron here in order to receive a fax, right? Because the person faxing has to call the main number. And then when they get to the main greeting, they enter 399, right, for the extension, and then they click send fax. So on a physical fax machine, that should be possible, right? There's either a handset or a speakerphone. so the person can listen in and know when to hit 399 and then when to hit the send fax button. Your electronic fax services may not support faxing to an extension. That's going to vary from service to service. May even be from service level, right? They might have like a free level, which it isn't supported, but a more premium level that does support it. And the other downside is Aaron will not be able to send a fax out because the system uses his fax box for caller ID purposes, and 399 is not a valid caller ID. So if Aaron ever needs to fax out, you would want to set this up then with a phone number, right? So he would have his own direct fax box number instead of an extension number. Conference Bridge. Once you click enabled, the only thing an admin has to do at that point is enter a PIN number and click Save Changes. Your users can adjust the PIN number for their conferences via the user portal. Follow Me is for users with multiple devices. And so we'll go here to Fred. So if we go to Follow Me, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to disable it first, and then we'll come back and re-enable. Okay, so this is how it starts off when you first enable it. Basically, the system wants to know what devices do you want the system to use. You uncheck the devices that you want to ring, and these are sliders, right? So you can adjust them. Oops. Like so. Now, just like groups, you have the timestamps here, so you can adjust it, as well as click on Distribute, and you can change the order and then click Distribute again. Music on hold. Users can have their own hold music if you want them to, right? You would first enable the feature, and then you upload the file. .wav, .mp3, .ogg recorded in mono under 1 megabyte. You can also choose from existing files that are on the account. Customized call recording. So by default, when you first enable it, it looks like this because the system wants to know what kind of calls you want recorded. So inbound internal means coworker call, right? So we'll say Aaron called Fred. Right, now inbound external, right? Customer Mary called Fred. All right, outbound internal, Fred called coworker Bob. Whereas outbound external means Fred called customer Mary back. And then you click on Save Changes. And then Do Not Disturb, meaning if it's enabled, calls aren't going to go to him, they're going to go to voicemail. Whereas if I disable it, that means his VoIP phones will ring. Or his cell phones or landlines, if he has those as well. All right, voicemail boxes. Shows all your voicemail boxes on the account. If this third column is populated, that means it was a user-created voicemail box, right? It's created at the same time the user was. Whereas the main fax box is something the system creates automatically. Up here, you can add a new voicemail box, like for instance, for use with one of your groups. Instead of using someone's personal voicemail box for a group, you give it a name, you give it a voicemail number, and a PIN number. All right, click on Create Voicemail Box. Once a voicemail box is created, you can then go to Advanced and go to Greeting Media. So you can select a media file, right, voicemail greeting, or you can upload one. Right, under Basic Settings, right, you would know the voicemail box number. You can enter the PIN number, and then you can record it over the phone. Now the temporary file, this is for your vacation or out of office, right? So if you have something selected on temporary, it will supersede whatever is selected for media until you set the temporary back to none. All right, recipients. Your user voicemail boxes already have a built-in recipient, right? The email address used for login. For any manually created voicemail box or even a user voice box, you can add additional recipients. You just need to enter an email address. And if you keep clicking add, you would keep adding additional voicemails or email addresses. And then when you're done, you click on Save Changes. And then lastly, options. So once a voicemail box has a greeting and has recipients, you can click on Already Set Up. then you have the option here to delete after notification. Those are the main things. You also have the option just transcribe if you have transcription on your account. Advanced routing, this is where direct inward system access is. And what that does is allows you to call in with a cell phone or a landline, log in over the phone, then make an outbound call. And then when you make that outbound call, it's not your cell phone that shows up as the caller ID, but your company number. If we click edit settings here, now normally I do recommend having an extension number. So that means when you call in, your staff members have to enter the extension number, and then they also need to know the PIN number before they hear that dial tone. Now, for new accounts, DISA is not enabled. And this is because if someone figures out the PIN number and the extension number, someone can make outbound calls on your account without you knowing about it. So typically, if you want this feature, you would need to contact our account services team, and they'll see about getting that enabled. I typically disable it once I'm done showing that feature. The call logs, this can show you your call history. So this would be a way to see if someone's making outbound calls on your account. You go to this month. The green arrow to the right, that's an inbound call to the system. Yellow arrow to the left, that's an outbound call. And in this case, I can see this was Mike calling from his VoIP phone to a particular 408 number. Whereas on the inbound call, this apparently they got to the greeting and stopped. Right, but here you can see call came here and went to this soft phone and ended normally. You have a little fire hydrant icon here next to any call. This will create an email that will go to support@virtualpbx.com and have the technical details. I would ask that in that email, in the body of the email, you explain what happened or what you experienced, right? You had bad call quality or your phone actually didn't ring, etc. You can download these files as a CSV file, right? Under custom, you can set the date range. The system, you can go back up to 1 year of call logs. Our engineers can go back an additional 6 months. After that, we can't get the data. So if the call log data is something you might need for whatever purposes, you probably want to do this on a schedule, right? Like every month sort of thing. If you have heavy call traffic, you might need to do it by week versus by month because it may take a long time to load. And then we have feature codes. I've mentioned the hot desking one already, but these are dial pad key strikes that your VoIP phone users can use to access different features of Dash. Right, so you can always get to it within your dashboard. This is also on our support pages. Right, there's a feature codes doc. There's also a phone commands cheat sheet PDF, which has a brief write-up about what the functions do. All right, that's the dashboard. So now we'll go over to ACD queues. ACD stands for Automatic Call Distribution. It's a call center feature. This is an add-on feature available on some plans, not every plan. So if this turns out to be something you're interested in, you probably want to double check with our account services team to see if you need to change plans and also what the cost would be with adding the queues. You click on add queue. I'm just going to click on the little gear icon here for an existing queue. So you give it a name, and then a queue can have either a phone number or an extension. It cannot have both. And then you have routing strategy. Oops. Round robin will equalize out over time, which is what this one is set to. Most idle, right, will send callers to the next, the person who's been waiting for the call the longest. Leased calls is the amount of least connected calls. So let's say Bob and Mary have been in the queue. Bob has connected with two 2 inbound callers. Mary is connected with 5. Under leased calls, Bob gets the next call that comes in. There's also leased offered, which is a combination of missed and connected calls. So in that scenario, let's say Bob's been offered 20 calls, Mary's been offered 5. Under leased offers, Mary gets the next call, even if she has more connected calls. A hold treatment, you can upload a media file, right? .wav, .mp3, .ogg. Queue timeout, this is how much time people can wait on hold. Inbound callers, measured in seconds. The queue call limit, this is how many people can wait on hold. This would be on top of who's already speaking to your staff members. 0 means there's no limit. Timeout immediately if empty. If none of your staff members are logged in and a call comes in, right, you have this enabled, the system will treat that inbound caller as if they hit this 3,600 seconds. Escalation call flow after timeout. What do you want the system to do after that 3,600 seconds? This is a pull down. Basically, you can send it to a voicemail box or another attendant, another queue, etc. And then 0 out to call flow. Basically, you can enable the ability to press 0 while inbound caller is waiting on hold, and then you decide where they're going. Agent behavior, agent recovery time measured in seconds, anywhere from 0 to 30 is fairly typical. This is how much time your staff has after they're done with a queue call before the system offers them another call from that queue. Right? So if you set it to 15 seconds, they have 15 seconds to like get a sip of water, finish their notes, etc. Force away on reject or missed. This means if an agent misses a call and you have this enabled, the system will put them in away mode. And that means the user would have to mark themselves as ready again to be able to take calls. And then agent connect timeout measured in seconds. Again, right now, queues, you can only take calls with VoIP devices. So 20 seconds is typically plenty of time. And then you would click on Save Changes. Over here, you got the little person icon for members. If you click on it, now this list is all the people who are available to be in my queues. Right? This does not have to match all of my staff members, but these are the people I said, okay, you can be in a queue. If I click on Manage Members, now here I can click on people and then add them to be a member of the queues. Right? Or if I decide, oh no, I don't want them to be part of my queues, I can then click and remove them. If we go back to the members list, right, you see now Ken is no longer showing up on this list. And if we go back to queues, if I click on here, I have no agents logged in, that's fine. If I click on add agents, you can see the agents who are in it, and then you can click and drag to add additional people to a queue. In terms of ad managers, they have to already be an agent first, and then you can move them over to be a manager. For your staff members, right, they would log into Dash, right? They can click on ACD queues, and they would click on Begin Session. So right now I'm getting logged in. You see I'm red because I'm still away. Now that first time you log in, you want to click on your little phone icon and select a VoIP device. And then when you're done with that, mark yourself as ready, and now I can take calls in this queue. Right? So green, ready, blue means you're on an inbound call, red means you're marked away, yellow means you're on an external call, and I believe gold means you're on wrap-up time. Right? Lunchtime, I would, whoops, let's go back. Lunchtime, I would mark myself away. Right? And then end of my day, end session. Now, we also have ACDQs Pro. There is a separate demo video on our YouTube channel that you can look at, which will show some of the differences. Some of the major ones being managers can eavesdrop on a call, whisper and barge in on a call. There's a bit more reporting function within the ACDQs Pro, and hold treatment is a lot more advanced. You can do things like announce their position online, or announce their expected wait time. You can have multimedia files play at different points. All right, blacklists. This is an included feature. This allows you to create a list of phone numbers that you are blocking from reaching your account. Right, so you need to know the phone number of the person you're blocking. You would start by clicking Edit Blacklists, and you probably start off with adding a new one. We'll look at the existing one here, but you would give it a name. And then the first choice you have here is, do you block anonymous? That means if we don't get valid inbound caller ID and you turn this on, that means we're blocking the call, right? They hear a busy tone. Beyond that, you would just click where it says add number here, put +1 area code and phone number, and then keep clicking add for each additional phone number you want to add. When you're done, you would click on save. You go back to settings, and then you make sure that list is on the right-hand side under selected. Right, so anything under this is active. Right, you can have multiple lists if you want to. And then you would click update, and now the phone numbers on this list cannot reach my system. Dynamic caller ID. This is a plan-specific feature. This allows you to create some rules to change the outbound caller ID for your staff members with their VoIP phones. All right, so first one here, I have that is called 408. Click edit here. All right, so any rule, you give it a name, and then you select the caller ID that you want displayed. This has to be a phone number that's on your account. And then here you decide how you're going to do it. In this case, I'm basing it off of area code. So whenever my staff members call a 408 area code phone number, the system will automatically change their outbound caller ID to this 408 number up here. And then I would click on Save Changes. The other one here is this LA area feature code. If I click Edit, in this case, I created a feature code. So staff members have to enter *550 and then enter the area code and phone number they're calling. And when they have that feature code in front, the system will change their caller ID to be this 323 area code phone number. Right? It's an LA area code phone number, so it looks like a local call to whoever they're calling. And again, this number has to be on the account. Faxes, this goes to your fax manager. So you can see your inbound faxes, right? The date, the time, who the caller came from, or where the fax came from, the number. You can also download the fax to look at it. And you can this will give you some technical details, which normally isn't necessary for an inbound fax. If you click on the checkbox, you can then also choose to delete a fax. Outbound faxes, again, you can look at your various fax boxes and you can see successes. You can also see failures here. If you click on a failure, you'd want to click on the little icon here, and this might give you more details about what happened. Like user busy would mean that the fax number that we tried to reach out to was busy. There's some other ones that come up as well. The email to fax logs. This shows you problems with outbound faxes. Now, this is where the system had a problem with either the user, right, who it came from, or the attachment. If you click on the little eyeball icon here, it'll say, oh, he's not on the account. And more specifically, it gave a second one that at the time, there was no fax boxes on this account. And this was back on the November 4th. So that has since changed. Right now, if you see failures on the outbound faxes page, right, this would be an error with communicating to the other side. So the system converted the document fine. There was no problem with the user, But then when we tried to send it out, there was a problem. Right? Email to fax log means there was a problem with either the user or the document before we could even send the fax out. Monitor is a plan-specific feature. This allows you to see your status of your users. Right? You can see everyone who's available, who's busy. You can flip it to just be to specific devices if you wanted to. Up here, you can see your active inbound calls, as well as parked calls. If there's a parked call, you would see the parking spot number. Number manager, this takes us back to your spare numbers, so you can delete or port or buy numbers. The recording manager, this will take you to recordings.virtualpbx.com so you can see your call recordings. You can download them, listen to them, delete them. If you have your Dash account linked with an AWS account, this would also then take you to your AWS the interface. It will grab the information from AWS so you can see your recordings that way. Reports, whoops. This is advanced reporting. This is a plan-specific feature. So you would need to talk to account services. This allows you to create your own reports. We do have a demo of this on our YouTube channel under videos. I would recommend you take a look at that to give you an idea of what you can do. Voicemails, this takes you to your voicemail manager. So you can get to any voicemail box on the account and see their messages. If there's a message here, if you put a check mark in it, as an admin, you can move it to a different voicemail box. You also have the ability to listen to or download a voicemail as well as delete it. Webhooks is plan specific. This allows you to link Dash to other software. If you're interested in doing that, you'd want to talk to our sales team actually. And you'd also want to look at developer.virtualpbx.com to see samples of what we have done. And then we have the user portal. Every user has access to their own user portal. So as an admin, you can't see anyone else's user portal, but you can access everything, right? So here's where they would see their voicemails. Now, if you have delete after notification enabled on the user, or actually on the user's voicemail box, right, nothing's going to show up here. Right, call history, users can look at their call history. They can adjust the dates, see inbound and outbound calls. If they have their own fax box, they could see their fax history. The contact list shows everything within the Dash account in terms of users, groups, etc. This is not something your staff members can add to, right? So like your sales staff wouldn't be able to add their client list here. The conference tab. This is where your users would update their moderator PIN and participant PIN numbers. They can also choose to have people come in muted or deafened, as well as playing entry and exit tones. When they're in a conference, here they can add or invite other Dash users to their conference. They can lock the conference so no one else can jump in, mute everybody, unmute everybody, hang up, meaning end the conference. Also, when they're in a conference, they can mute a specific participant as well as kick a participant from the conference. And then settings and devices, this is where your users would enable call forwarding themselves. Just enter in +1 area code and phone number, and then click on save. And that is everything. All right, I haven't seen any questions pop up. And I'm not sure, actually, I don't know if anyone is still here. So I'll go ahead and end the training here. Again, we're here every Tuesday, or typically every Tuesday at 10 a.m. Pacific. We do record them, so you can come back and view them at any time. And again, I would strongly encourage you to watch the ACDQ's Pro demo and the advanced reporting demos here on our YouTube channel. Beyond that, thank you for your time today, and I hope you have a wonderful day.